So that deal I made $16,000 off of. Every penny I turned around and I reinvested it into the next property.
The military taught us discipline, it taught us leadership, but it never taught us how to really build wealth and income. This is the Active Duty Passive Income Podcast, and I'm your host, Markian, a United States Marine turned full-time real estate investor and educator. I'm bringing you the most successful military, veteran, and military spouse real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and industry experts to break down exactly how they did it, so you can too. Hey, ADPI. This is my first recording since our conference. The conference that used to be called ADPI Con, we just had our 4th annual conference, and now we rebranded it, renamed it the Military Real Estate Investing Conference, just so it pops off the page and really kind of like attracts the right people. So it's easier to, because not everybody knows what ADPI is, right? And we want to impact 3 million military families. And I had the pleasure of meeting some really, really amazing people. And I believe our current guest, if I remember correctly, was the first one to jump on stage because we had a really cool opportunity that worked out really well. We weren't sure how it was going to go, but we kind of challenged a lot of our members to come out on stage. And, you know, one of my favorite words is leverage, and to leverage the opportunity to speak to many people in one single moment. And so he jumped up on stage, crushed it, and then actually won what we kind of called like a mini pitch challenge. We wanted everybody to speak about themselves and what they're accomplishing and what they need help with and what they can help with. And he dominated the stage full of confidence. And I want him to, I talked to him afterwards and I decided like, you need to tell your story to the ADPI community because it's very unique. And, I feel like this is just going to be a very inspirational conversation with probably a lot of twists and turns. But for the most part, this is going to be another one of those like community driven, a community spotlight, if you will. And he's actually brand new to our community, which is kind of a funny story too. So anyways, without further ado, Cheyenne Wachtendorf, welcome aboard to the ADPI podcast. It is awesome to have you here. How are you doing?
Hey, I am doing fantastic, Markian, and I really appreciate the introduction. I'll tell you that REI Con was a phenomenal experience. And gosh, man, what a unique experience. Not only with what you guys were presenting, but just as luck would have it, everything that has happened since. And this conversation right here today is a perfect example of that. So, very grateful to be here. Loved everything that happened at the conference. And I'm really looking forward to sharing the story, sharing the twists and turns, as you put it. They seem to be never ending. And I hope I can keep it to an hour.
Yeah, never ending twists and turns. I'll tell you. 2 days ago, I had a wild twist or a turn, if you will. I had somebody I was trying to acquire a property from for over 2 years text me and basically say, all right, basically he was like, I'm just going to give it to you. Like, and now it's a creative finance deal, but essentially zero out of pocket. I get it for a whole year until I actually finally have to buy him out because he's just fed up with it. And I was just like, holy, and this was after like, him getting offended with some of my previous offers to now him saying, here you go. So yeah, life is full of twists and turns. So, okay. How about this? Can you just tell us like, if because obviously most people, like, you're pretty new to our community, right? First of all, like I remember you saying it was almost like a funny story. Like you didn't even know what really you were getting yourself into, right? You just showed up at the conference kind of like, how did that happen?
Yeah, man, hilarious story. So, during the conference, one of the big things that we talked about was it doesn't matter if you are on step 1 or step 47 of your journey. We're all here to learn and collaborate and work together and, build ourselves a legacy that lasts for generations. Get yourself out of the day-to-day grind. Well, I had no idea about any of that showing up. So my motto for the weekend was I am on step 0. I have a fantastic best friend, Matthew Hughes. Shout out to the gentleman who not only purchased my ticket, but coordinated everything for me to come to the event because he believes so much in what you guys are doing at ADPI that he said, brother, you have got to come see this. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
flattering. That's inspirational.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. I was his sergeant in the Army. We both served active duty together in Hawaii as 25 Sierras, and he and I have stayed in touch, kind of had a mentor-mentee relationship all these years. And
Super
now
cool.
it's flipping on its head. This gentleman has this it's been years of him calling me, "Hey, what do you think about this? How do you feel about that?" And now he's calling me and he's leading me in this journey. He's gone through one of your guys' cohorts and he's
Wow.
looking at commercial real estate investing. He said, "You have got to do this." And I said, "Well, that is so funny. Let's learn more about it because I've had a tumultuous real estate journey, lots of ups and downs, twists and turns, totally self-educated, no framework, no teaming, which is a huge part of what I learned and was grateful for having gotten to been exposed with during the REI Con. So
Hmm.
it's been a wild journey, and he's gotten to experience some of that with me. So he brought
So
me out there, and luck would have it, here I am.
wow. So truly just like friends since the military, and he stumbled into this, dragged you into the whole conference, and next thing I know, you're smiling from ear to ear, and you're like, "I'm pumped to be here." And I was just like, and that's when I started digging in at the VIP dinner, like what your story was a little bit more, what your background was, and you were just kind of like, it sounded very unique and different. It wasn't the typical. Like you didn't open with like, oh, I just bought a house and now I'm looking to build my team and syndicate, or like I want to go get a fourplex next. Which I mean, by the way, guys, I'm not trying to downplay that. Those are the keys to the kingdom I'm talking about, right? Those are those foundational, transformational wealth building elements, like using your VA loan, and building from there. But Cheyenne, you have a very interesting kind of venture you're working on, right? And I'm so happy that Matt brought you in. Now, maybe just before we talk about your venture, because I can't wait to get to it. Is there Can you describe a little bit, like, because I think the context here will matter. I'm always interested in like what makes every next domino kind of like you heard me talking about dominoes almost to ad nauseum, but like what got you to where you are? Like your military background, your family background, like who made Cheyenne before you maybe started to be kind of an entrepreneur?
That is a story that could never really end. I'll
Okay.
I'll start at the beginning, and I'm going to skim over some wild things. So I'm
Okay.
gonna
Maybe
try to
maybe we'll
keep us
trace back. Maybe
yeah,
we'll trace
I will
back and jump into those. How about
I
that?
yeah, I will try to keep us from going on too many tangents here, because as you stated, the venture I'm working on is such a unique opportunity. It's such a beautiful thing that I'm extremely passionate about, so I don't want to take away from that. But how did I get here? Well, I'm a byproduct of a Southeast Texas home, a polygamist household at that. I grew up in a home with multiple mothers. My father bore 13 children, and I am the
Whoa.
second to youngest. He and I have had a really tough relationship. One of the smartest men that I've ever met, however, and unfortunately, without any kind of moral compass. So
Wow.
I grew up in a situation in which my family was not only dysfunctional, but due to some unfortunate circumstances with an older brother that was, you know, had some substance abuse challenges. He orchestrated a home invasion that resulted in my father's near death and terrible brain injuries, and it resulted in my father's inability to regulate his emotion, cerebral frontal lobe damage. So it's kind of all
Goodness.
of this kind of set me on a path to changing my trajectory. I grew up on a farm. It was nothing but hard work and discipline. My father was really old school, and things turned pretty rough there in my
Yeah.
later years, my early teenage years, because of those injuries. So I spent a number of years really lost, not only in faith, but in life. I mean, I did not grow up in a household driven by any religion or any faith-based concepts. No, again, father lacking some morality. And I spent the early part of my years finding ways to create freedom for myself, but I was completely ignorant to the most appropriate ways to do that. And so I went to college, got wonderful scholarships to be a track and cross country runner in college. Ended up not only breaking a femur that year, but also flunking out anyways because I was too busy with my fraternity brothers to study for my tests. And that ultimately led me to the military. And to be quite honest, I was one of those guys that the military was the only thing I ever knew. My entire family was military. Everyone had done it. My oldest brother had joined, my mother, my father, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, they're all military. And I was the one that told myself my whole life, I'm not gonna go to the military. I I
Mm,
I pride myself on family. I had a deep longing for that familial connection and that love that my family just kind of so desperately needed and lacked. And so
mm,
the military, I had a deep fear for it. You know, we know how it is as service members, high divorce rates. You know, you miss birthdays, you miss first steps. Your life is controlled and everything is mandated by leadership who may or may not be the mentor you're looking for. Um, and making those mistakes led me to the military. And by the grace of God, that is really what saved me. And so that I think is what spoke to me on such a deep level with ADPI was that the community is centered around active duty military and veterans. Having gone through everything that I did and finding, a brotherhood and a sisterhood of service members on active duty, that we all come from different walks of life. Doesn't matter your political affiliation, your religious affiliation, how much money your parents have, how rich or poor you are. We're all there to serve our country, and that really is what set me on the right path. I had this idea to use the military as a stepping stone about halfway through my career. First half, man, as soon as I decided to do it, I was gung ho. I jumped in, perfect PT score, expert marksman, German Armed Fishes Proficiency Badge, air assault, airborne, Special Forces assessment and selection. I mean, just did so many amazing, unique, and wonderful things during my active duty years that I thought I was going to be a lifer. And then it hit me
right.
one day after I had missed, as I alluded to a moment ago, after I had missed a few birthdays and I missed first steps and I couldn't be there for my wife when
Mhm.
she was in the hospital with severe preeclampsia. I realized this is not what I want for the rest of my life. The thing that I've longed for my entire childhood and so desperately desired to have in becoming a father myself, all the things that I've achieved in the military, I still don't have it. And so I said, there has to
Wow.
be a change. There really has to be a change. And well, all I'd ever heard, rich dad, poor dad, all these things about real estate, that real estate is how you change your life. It's the most tried and true. 85% of millionaires come from real estate investing. And I said, okay, well, if I'm going to take a leap of faith into anything, it's gonna be the thing that most people have seen the greatest success with, and boy,
Wow.
has it been a hard journey in real estate.
Oh my gosh. Okay, like, you're kinda blowing my mind. The whole story is just I think you did a really good job of kind of, like, painting the picture without it's like you went into some details, you didn't go into others, I could tell, like, but thank you for being vulnerable, like, that is I don't know, that's a very that was not what I was expecting, first of all. So that's I know our listeners are probably at the edge of their seat trying to, like, okay, like, what are you doing in real estate now? But, if I may just dig in a little bit into the last thing you were talking about with regards to, the military is everything you knew. I can tell, I mean, just looking at your wall, like, you're super proud of your service, but eventually push came to shove in like psychologically, I battle that all the time. Like, I can't tell you. And people who probably have listened to the podcast probably know this. So, like, I'm sorry if this is like a repeat, but I think this is probably the linchpin to change after you're in the military is like giving yourself permission to do your own thing. It's so like I honestly like I was like, should I feel guilty? Am I a quitter? Like, should I have done 20 years? Nobody in the military that I knew, like, really, like, well, 90% of the people I knew, this was not what I was going to talk with them about. This is not something they were interested in. I always joke it was like,
football and beer on the weekends. Other than that, come and go fly an airplane. You're done. Like there was no, and to a certain degree, some of that weekend fun and freedom and, watching football, that just feels super patriotic, and it was aligned, right? Like, and so I got it and I loved that. And I went to the Naval Academy, like everybody was just like hyper intense, hyper patriotic, hyper like, so I grew up or like that made sense to me, like sports, military, like the drive. But then I also came from a big family. But I was the oldest of seven. And in a weird way, like I had to guide my parents on finding a path to retirement thanks to real estate as well. And so, gosh, I can't wait to get into your twists and turns because I'm still having it's not a cakewalk. Let's put it that way, right? But how did you, before we get into it, like how did you reconcile that? One little anecdote. I remember the thing that broke the camel's back for me, and it's like hard to describe because I don't want it to sound like I'm, not thankful for the military or that wasn't appreciative of it. But there were moments where, at least in our squadron, I remember the new commander, a new CO took over right as I showed up. The squadron was known as the best. The CO was the best. This new dude came in, meant the best. He had really good intentions, but that trickle down experience, just the amount of pressure that was created on the WTIs and our instructors, it just permeated. I think I remember the stat was between 60 and 70% of the senior enlisted didn't re-enlist under his tenure. He like ruined the culture. And I remember it kind of became like a mark of pride, like who stayed at work the longest, who sacrificed the most. And here I am, I have an immigrant wife who doesn't speak the language yet, just got pregnant, and I have to, hold her hand during some like the OB appointments just so she understands what's going on because she's terrified, every other week. And that was like looked down upon. And I remember in the wardroom, I got my mug, or like whatever it's called, the big beer stein with the aircraft on it and everything. And underneath was in Sharpie was written, "It's like you have the only wife in the military." And I was just like, what the hell? And I was like, where's the support? Where's the family? You know what I mean? And that broke it for me. Like I was on the phone. It was game over, I was on the phone with my wife. She just knew something was wrong. She's like, dude, and that's when I don't know if I told this on a podcast before. That's when I submitted, it's not a punitive thing, it's like an administrative thing. I submitted what's called voluntary termination of flight status. I was like, I no longer want to be in this job. There's many other reasons why, but whatever. And so then I switched to public affairs. It's in the Marine Corps, we call it communication strategy and operations. But that was it. I was like, and it sucked because I was like, it was almost like you're disappointed. Like I have such a romantic perspective on what this should be. And it didn't work. So I'm sorry, I took up a lot of time there, but like when some of the things you were describing, I was like, I wonder how he thought through that. How did you think through that? Because there's got to be some ingredients there that got you to where you are now and what you're doing with the entrepreneurship and so on and so forth, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, we have some strikingly similar aspects to our story. And I always, I feel that it's necessary to be vulnerable and speak openly about these things because, it paves the way for others to feel that they can voice those thoughts out loud as well. So I appreciate your response there. But yeah, some striking similarities. I originally came in, wanted to be a 69 series. I want to be a explosive ordnance technician. I had a moment of clarity paired with some unfortunate news that resulted in me taking a different type of MOS entirely. And as I said earlier, when I decided to join the military, man, I was all in. I had that love for fitness. I had that love, you only have one life. You only have one body. You've got to take care of it. You really have to take care of it. And so when I joined the military and I said, okay, this is what I'm doing, I had a wife and a young child at home that depended solely and entirely on my ability to succeed in this venture. And that was all of the motivation that I needed to be successful. And so I started on the path, and I did anything and everything that my leadership said, this is what you do to be successful. And man, I tell you, I mean, when I was in advanced individual training, you know, when you first start learning about your job, I was able to go and become a modern Army combatives instructor. I was a sponsored athlete for the All Army 10 miler. You know, I got to do the German Armed Forces proficiency, all these things while still in training. And man, just the love for my time in the military continued to grow and grow and grow until such a point that I was doing competition boards, won our company, then the battalion, then the brigade, then the division. And then I was sitting atop a podium amongst over 25,000 other competitors in all of the Indo-PACOM region as the top best warrior for the year in 2016. And the PACOM commander, I get to meet him for the very first time, and he says, "What do you want to do with your career?" Well, I said, honestly, I would like to get an education and find a way to continue to further my career as an officer. And after that time, you know, people are looking at me, you know, I'm a specialist. People are looking in E4. People are looking to me to get promoted. They're looking at me as a mentor. They're looking to me for advice on their own physical fitness, on their own shooting, on how to become better soldiers. And it, as rewarding as that was, the turning point for me, the catalyst, what all kicked off this turning point for me was a staff sergeant by the name of, well, I won't throw his real name out there. There was a staff sergeant who was my squad leader, and he was near the end of his career, you know, 17 years active duty, still in E6, not a ton of success in his career, came in and had gotten sour over the years. And he looked at me and he was frustrated that my career was moving so quickly and was successful. And
Right.
he prevented my promotion. He held me back. He gave me extra duty, gave me extra responsibility, denied leave, put me in positions where I did not get to spend even the time that I should have been afforded with my family. And
Wow.
and it continued to dissolve into this relationship where the commander of my battalion said, "I expect this soldier to be in a promotion ceremony." And at the company level, he was one of the evaluators. And despite getting a perfect score in every question, he gave me a 0. And in the comments section, he wrote, I cannot in good conscience support this soldier's promotion to sergeant at this time." And it was a personality clash. And that really stopped me in my tracks for a moment and caused me to look around at my environment and my community. And I really just kind of began to realize, you know, I could live with all these other things, but even my journey into the military was a leap of faith. And that term really is something that I hold extremely sincere. My wife and I got married right out of high school, had our oldest son, Noah, right out of high school. We met the summer before our 9th grade freshman year at a church camp, the first time I had ever walked through the doors of any kind of religious organization. My mother knew that I was being led astray, and she signed me up for this week-long camp. And I met my wife, and the first thing we ever did together was we went and did an obstacle course, and she and I were the only two to do a leap of faith together and make it. And so that was kind of the big part of my life. And so when
Wow.
I was in the military and I was at this point where I'm looking around at those around me, and I'm beginning to see that everyone was using the military for college to build credibility and certifications for their career. they weren't like me. They didn't have that love for it. They didn't have that desire to thrive. They showed up, they did their job, they gave the minimum effort, and they moved on. And so this is, I know, long-winded here, but this is where it all is coming together. In that moment, I finally realized that I could do more than I ever thought I could. And so I said, what can I do more currently as a tier 1 Bravo asset supporting one of the most important aspects of communications in the military? What more can I do? What more can I give? And so then I went to Special Forces, and I did that, loved it. I thought, this is it. This is where I want to be. These are my guys. These are my teams. These are the people that are just like me. And it did not take me but 6 months to realize it still wasn't enough, that I hadn't
Wow.
done enough. And I realized I can do more. I can do better. I can do more. And so as I looked around another 6 months later, and I just continue to have, this calling to do more and to give more and to be a better, be as best as I possibly can be. I didn't even know what area that was going to be. I said, I have to take a leap of faith. I have got to take another leap of faith. I was up for reenlistment. I was on my way back out to Fort Bragg. I had all of these packets in my lap for options that I could do. And ultimately I decided to get out. And everyone looked at me, a gung-ho warrior that had accomplished more than most people do in 20 years in 5. What are you doing? You're the
Wow.
you're the you're the poster child for the Army. You're the guy that's I've never had a first sergeant that tells me you can't do this, and I don't do it. And this guy, Cheyenne, Sergeant Wacht, is getting out. What in the world? That vulnerability and that leap of faith, man, I would not have changed it for the world.
So similar. That what like
Yeah.
me submitting my Volturn, like nobody even knew how to do it. Like I had to figure out how to do it.
Yep.
And when I did, like, what do you mean you don't want to fly a gray aircraft? Like, what is your problem?
Exactly.
You know?
What the
Yeah.
guys that are sitting there, I'm sitting here for years saying, come on, guys. Like, I'm teaching people combatives every day on the floor of work. My sergeant's times training. So in the Army, if you're my soldier and I have to perform corrective action, I'm going to correct you in ways that build you into a stronger soldier. And I'm going to build you across the full soldier concept. I was the guy sitting there, teaching you these things, putting your nose in a book, getting you to do college, getting you to work on your physical fitness, teaching you the difference between processed and non-processed food and carbohydrates and fats and proteins and, how to turn your life around and how to survive in this community long term and get to your 20 years and get to your pension. And after years of building that reputation and that image of myself, like overnight, I decided I am going back to college. I'm going to leave active duty, and I am going to find a way to do more. And I didn't know even at that point that it was going to be real estate that you really, really pushed me. At that point, I was just so afraid of leaving the, easy paycheck, the easy career growth, being told what to do, where to be, what I can and can't do, when. You get so assimilated to that leap of faith is huge. It's
Oh my God, I
enormously
know.
scary. And so all I knew to do was the next best thing from the military was, what all of our parents told us, because this was the American dream 20 years ago. You could get a job, have a single income family, buy a home, drive a nice car, build your pension and retire after 20, 30 years. And so that's what I thought I was going to do. I said, that's it. I spent time getting my education, building certificate after certificate, becoming a project manager and becoming a consultant and doing all of these different things. Started a couple of businesses eventually, thinking, well, maybe, I can have these little side gigs and they'll help me make some extra money. But it wasn't until I found myself another 5 years down the road from leaving active duty that life really slowed down. My progress was not moving forward like I wanted it to. I was doing
Okay.
everything right. I had good mentors, I had good jobs. I was doing what I was being told, but it comes down to this, and I think a lot of the listeners can resonate with this. How many times have you spent an entire year with a company doing anything and everything that you can to be as exceptional in that role as you can possibly be? Continue your education, get another certification, spend more hours in the office than anyone else, take fewer holidays, don't burn up your PTO. And yet at the end of the year, what what does your supervisor say? That you've met expectation. That doesn't work for me. I want my work to be reflected accurately. Look, if I go through life and all I'm doing is seeking to meet expectations, then the only person I can be upset with about that is myself. But if I go out there and I work and I work and I take those leaps of faith and I don't give up and I'm ambitious and I'm courageous and I'm vulnerable, then golly, man, I better see the results. And as a W-2 employee, I never did. I never could.
Wow. Geez, man. You know what's interesting is I know we're supposed to be talking about real estate, but like I feel like this is kind of like this subterranean stuff. Like, when in my master class, I don't want to talk about the car. I don't want to talk about how the engine works in the car. I want to talk about the fuel, like what actually makes this whole thing go. Right. And I think these types of conversations, like if you get your head straight, the real estate will come or the business will come. Right. And what's interesting is I'm listening to you as also an employer, right? Our team, a lot of us are on W-2. And I've had some missteps in growing the team, right? But also I feel like we're, not to be cliche, but there's a book called Traction. I feel like we're gaining traction as a team. And there was something that I'm finding is I feel like from what you're saying is you're saying, I know I'm confident enough in myself that I did what I was supposed to do, and you're putting the onus now on the employer, essentially. They did not create a path wide and long enough for you to track on, right? There was, if not a wall, it was just, you were kind of in quicksand. There was just no way to keep growing, which is to me, and I'll explain why, because I don't have an MBA. I've never built there was one failed app and this YouTube channel that failed before I started ADPI. But the one thing that I strive for with ADPI is to grow it so big and to allow everybody to grow, like if not change roles, right? That the company grows and therefore their role elevates, right? Like, for example, VP of operations 5 years ago was not nearly what it is today, right? Like eons different, right? Inside of our organization. And I know, like, based off of just talking to you, like, we are so hyper-focused on A-class players. And the most important thing with A-class players is probably the things you're saying. You want to see the fruits of your labor, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like entrepreneurial. And I think what we're accomplishing at ADPI, I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but what I'm trying to do as best as I can is to, as the company grows, allow everybody who wants to grow, either grow their role to be bigger or to grow up and have it be an unlimited path, right? ADPI has a very big mission. We want to impact 3 million military families. So we purposely have a big mission. I needed it to be huge because that's the only thing that A class, like it's like you feel A class players feel it in their DNA. Like, okay, there's a long runway there, right? And then I need to make sure that those that are the most patient, those that are okay with, like, I've heard this from some of our team members in the past. I'm okay with scrubbing toilets. I've heard that come out of a person's mouth because it's like they're willing to sacrifice, and as soon as they see the outcome is appreciated legitimately, they're going to keep doing that.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's, again, this is it's funny. We're not talking about real estate, but like I'm hyper concerned with not only doing real estate right, but also building the organization that has a mission to inspire a lot of people to change their lives with real estate. And the only way I can do that is if I build a very big mission with an incredible team. And are there going to be missteps? Millions of them along the way.
And and that's why really the whole conversation, it is about real estate. It's just been, we've been working our way up there, because if real estate is your true focus, if making lots of money is your true focus, if your goal is to be the person with the greatest number of doors in the room, you're probably never going to be that person. You have to have a driving force that is greater than yourself, that is greater than money, that is greater than ego and glory. And that's really what my story is about. And that's really what my haven is about, to show people and to teach people that real estate is an avenue by which you can accomplish your goals, whether it's get out of the 9 to 5.
You can grow.
You can continue to grow in whatever direction it is that you believe is most important to you in here. Money's great, but money is a tool. Real estate is fantastic, and I want to provide avenues by which people can live in homes and not only survive but thrive, regardless of their career and their financial stability. I want people to have those things, but again, as I said earlier, but I can do more than that.
It's so weird. Like, did you ever feel? I was terrified to say that out loud, even in my own head, that I don't know what the right word is. I have a weird relationship with the word destiny, but like I felt like I was destined for more.
Well,
like I felt like it was weird because I was like, is this ego or is this okay? Because I truly like when it comes to like our team members, the people that I keep around me, what I'm finding is those that know how to control their ego are incredible people. Like I want you to have insane ambition, for Caesar was ambitious, right?
Absolutely.
But I want you to be able to constantly question your methods.
And
I actually gave the talk about this last year. I was like, if you want to be infinitely confident, but at the same time perfectly balanced in humility, is constantly question your methods.
I have two perfect points for that I have lived with for years. Because again, mind you, going back to the beginning of the conversation, my life was riddled with nothing but failure, nothing but sadness, nothing but disdain and jealousy and envy and a desire to be someone else and have something else and to have come from somewhere else. But I had that drive, and my entire life, point number one, my entire life, people had told me, don't try that, don't do that, don't expect that to happen. It's not realistic. And my response,
not realistic.
My response has been this: if I believe in myself enough, I can make my reality whatever I want it to be. That's the ego side, right? That's the blind ambition. That's the goal. Now, the second point, which counters that and balances fanatics like myself and you, is this: having that confidence and that ambition is great, but the sole ability to question yourself and wonder, am I doing the right thing? Wonder, am I making the right decision? That perspective, that retrospect on the back end, that is what should tell you you're doing the right thing. Because someone who's doing things for the wrong reasons, someone who is electing to not even take a chance and take that leap of faith. They're not sitting there questioning themselves. They question themselves before they take action, not after they take action. And so I always have to remind myself of that, because my whole life I've questioned myself every step along the way, from the time that I was living on my own at 14 years old, to the time that I went to college, to the time that I got married at 17, to the time that I joined the military, left the cushy, easy job, started a business. I have failed and failed and failed and failed and failed over and over and over. My life has been riddled in an extremely polar way between success and failure. And every failure has taught me that I would have never reached those successful endeavors had I not taken the leap of faith and gave it a chance. And sometimes I question myself, and those voices, they're right. It doesn't all work out, but if you question yourself too much and you do not give yourself an opportunity to fail, you will never have a chance at success. And think about our military brothers and sisters who didn't leave. They questioned themselves too much. They questioned, well, what about health insurance for my family? What about, a steady paycheck? What am I going to do if I get fired from my job? I can't afford housing, or I didn't get educated. They questioned themselves to the point that they crippled their ability to take action. I have met guys with amazing drive that they crippled themselves. So either way you look at it, right? You came at it from the same way I did, where can I be too ambitious? Can I be too driven? Well, I challenge you to reframe your mindset to think, can I question myself too much? Can I hinder myself too much? And it's that balance that allows us to continue to move forward. And so, yeah, you're right. I will bend reality to make my vision real.
I love that.
I will bend it. I will do everything in my power to make what I envision reality, because I believe in it and I'm passionate about it and it matters to me. I think it's extremely important, and I want to give to other people the things that I have learned, because my whole life I didn't have the mentor. I didn't have the financial advisors. I didn't have the guys in my corner to help me. I call my path to success a pinball game, because if the path to success is a straight line and you have someone, like Thatch in your corner telling you what to do, how to do it, here's your path to success. You join a cohort, you get a team right out of the gate, and you guys are on a straight path to success. Me, I have bounced left and right over and over and over again. But I know now what the straight and narrow path looks like. And so I can help other people save a decade of their life and be just as successful or 10 times as successful as I am.
I'll challenge you a little bit, okay? Because I 100% buy what you're saying, but I want to just maybe not reframe, but just like add a little bit of pepper in there.
Absolutely.
Is even if somebody has the framework, which that's truly, there's something I learned in flight school, that's for sure. It's like frameworks and checklists and steps, and they always said that our NATOPS manuals were written in blood. Like, let's learn from each other's mistakes, right? And that was really, truly the MO early on. I was like, there is nobody. Eventually there was. Shout out to Buddy Rushing. Like he was one of the first people that I found that was like into real estate in the Marine Corps. But like I got my start even like I started into this world even before knowing it. There was like very few and far between, right? But when you're saying straight and narrow path, like I feel like no matter how, like the framework, like it will save you a lot of hurt, but you're still going to have within that straight and narrow path, you're still going to be a little bit of a pinball all over the place. Because like everybody, like the whole world, everybody has free will. Nobody knows what's going to happen, and somebody's going to come in and screw up your day someday. It's going to happen. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me, right? I told it on stage. Like I had somebody demo our kitchen, like a commercial kitchen in a memory care facility before pulling permits. Like, bro, like I cannot make that up. The city doesn't care. It's my fault. I hired the guy. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. That was my one challenge, because like I love every single month we improve our cohorts, for example, just a little bit, and it kills me that like a year ago maybe all those little improvements didn't exist, right? Like it kills me. I'm like, I wish, but I also I want everybody to be super excited, and it's a weird thing as an educator. I'm like, I need to balance more towards what's possible and what's exciting, because that's what will get somebody to take that first step and to not over question. Right. But at the same time, I kind of want to like sometimes inject like, ADPI cannot protect you from like some of the pinballs that are that either you're gonna experience or whatever. So anyway,
no, I mean,
yeah.
that's a great point. And let me frame it this way. Have you ever heard Neil deGrasse Tyson said this in a fantastic way to Joe Rogan one time, where he was describing the lowest point of Earth and the highest point of Earth, right? And the difference is about 6 miles from the deepest part of the Mariana Trench to the peak
Everest,
of the tallest mountain, Everest, correct. He said, if you were to take that scale and shrink it down to the size of a cue ball, it would be the smoothest cue ball you have ever had in your hand, ever. That and vice versa, if you were to take a cue ball and scale it to the size of the Earth, it would have every tiny small scratch and dent and imperfection of that cue ball would be far greater than the distance between the lowest point on Earth and the highest mountain peak. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me if I look at my path from a micro scale, when I look at my path on the small scale, it's going to be, you're going to see the imperfections. You're going to see the small things. You're going to see, you're going to see in the day-to-day life all those hiccups, right? When you look at that deal where they didn't pull the permits and they demoed a kitchen, that looks like a huge gouge in your cue ball. But when you scale it up and you look at the bigger picture and you look at the grand scheme of the deal and where you're at and how you've been able to navigate getting through it and relied on your mentors and you have a framework, you realize, man, at the end of the day, it really didn't deviate me from my original plan that much. It was just a hiccup along the way. And I think having that viewpoint and saying, okay, yes, it is never true. Everyone thinks a cue ball is smooth. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on how close you look at it, right? When I say straight and narrow, that's what I mean. When I look at it, if I hyper focus, yeah, it's still a pinball. Doesn't matter what you have in place. But when you take a step back, and that's what I try to do in everything in life, take a step back, smell the roses for a second, and look at what you've accomplished. Man, you have a pretty well-rounded, smooth, and extremely advantageous framework and path for others to follow.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be successful, right? And so,
I agree.
Thinking about it that way, I can say, well, from a macro scale, it's a dang straight and
you got to
narrow
zoom
path.
out.
Exactly.
You got to zoom out.
And again, the balance. There's a time to zoom in. There's a time to zoom out.
Awesome. Cheyenne, we need to finally get to your walk squad haven, right?
Absolutely.
I want to hear this. Okay. So tell me, A, where did the idea come from? And B, how did you structure the deal? And C, what is the goal for it? So three
Absolutely.
things. Where did the idea come from? How'd you find it? And what's the plan for it?
So the idea originated with the vision of being the person I never had. I wanted to be able to show everyone from the little boys and the little girls that don't have a good role model to the grown adults who are struggling to find what the future looks like for them and their families. I wanted to serve in a capacity where the lessons that I have learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all together can serve as a voice of inspiration for other people. And to let them know that it doesn't matter how dark today may feel to you, that there is light. And here's some ways that I've been able to find it in hopes of aiding you in that journey. This is where the idea came from was, well, how can I do that? I entertained, motivational speaking path. I entertained, serving in the big brother, big sister communities, the Boys and Girls Club, served as an advisor to a company that provided homes for the homeless. And I just continued to have that feeling, that calling that I can do more.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized all of the different things that I want to do, that the only way I'm going to be able to do it is with a ton of space. And so I started to look back at my own past and think about my roots and my foundation and what are the things that I really care about that I think can truly help people, right? And we've talked about them through here: your fitness, your health, your consumption, your level of discipline. How do you push yourself? How do you motivate yourself? These kinds of things. And I just began to piece together this puzzle. I like to use this analogy. I have been building a puzzle that came in an unmarked box that didn't tell you how many pieces there were. It didn't tell you the shape, and it didn't tell you what the final product should look like. I have a vision of what I want this puzzle to look like, and I am bending the puzzle pieces to fit what I want them to be. But at the end of the day, I'm building the puzzle as I go along, and I have been able to find what it's supposed to look like, even though when I started out, I didn't really know. So, that's kind of how I stumbled upon it. How did I get here? Well, through mostly real estate mishaps, but a few successes. I had this vision for a long time. I wanted to get, and I mapped out the space. I had, these dream boards and these vision boards, and I said, I want to have 100 or more acres of land. Why? Okay, here's why. Listed it out. How do I accomplish it? Once I got there, I said, okay, how am I going to get here? Well, I need to grow my revenue as best as I possibly can. I did that a few ways. I started off with the W-2 income, chasing that rat race. How can I make more money? And
you used it as a tool, it sounds like?
Absolutely. I said,
okay, so got it.
Yeah,
which I think is smart, by the way. Everybody who's listening, I think that's an important lesson here. And I've heard other podcasts and other hosts talk about this. Like, don't quit your day job, like necessarily day one. Okay.
Absolutely.
Like, really use it. Like, I think what you're getting at also is like when you feel like you need to do, like you're destined for more, or you can do more, or you should do more, is that's probably really the mark of an entrepreneur. And the only way to maybe fulfill that is to do your own thing, because then it can be as big as you want it.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, but you used your W-2. In this case, it sounds like it's one of the little engines to catalyze your journey.
Yes, precisely. And the way I think about it is there is confidence and there is arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
It is a confident endeavor for me to take on something. A great metaphor is bite off more than you can chew and then learn how to chew it. Right?
Yeah, screw the one bite at a time stuff.
Yeah. But there is confidence and there is arrogance, right? And so my W-2 job, the entire purpose was to grow that career to a point that I could have enough liquid capital to begin to fund everything. And so you talk about dominoes a lot, right? The first domino was to earn enough money in a W-2 job that not only could I afford my current lifestyle, but that I could afford to reinvest in myself. So most people are putting it in 401ks and Roth IRAs, and people are, or unfortunately doing the opposite, buying new cars and getting a house that's much too big for them. I decided, no, this is going to be my first domino. My first domino is to get a job where I have enough money that I can take it and reinvest it into the next thing. I can live safely and comfortably, but I can invest it into the next thing. What was that next thing? Well, I bought a 2-acre manufactured home in the middle of the country, just north of a major town, Conroe, Texas, outside of Houston, Texas, southeast Texas, after leaving the military. I did a bunch of improvements. I built a large shop. I opened a gym. So now, Domino 2 is
wow.
I'm making money from that investment. I improved the home. And along the way, started entertaining crypto. That bit me pretty hard for a couple years. Yeah. But that was domino number 2. So I funded through my W-2 income. In fact, actually, let me back up because I do not want to toot my horn here. It actually was a unique funding situation. I did a seller finance initially because I did not have enough verified employment history at the rate of pay that was necessary to purchase this home. And so instead of letting the deal fall through, I got a little creative. I told my story and I met with the sellers, and he was a veteran as well. And I explained to him, we're a young family. I'll do anything to make this work. Let's find a way to make it work. And he spent 18 months carrying the mortgage for us to purchase this home before we did finally buy it.
Wow.
And so sometimes those dominoes are small, right? Some people want to jump right into the apartments and the the duplexes and the quadplexes and such, but not all of us are there. Some of us only have, a little bit of money or no extra money each month. There's still a way to get into it.
But that's critical. Like I try to say this all the time. Like, let's go back to the dominoes analogy for a second. Like I say, every single onboarding call, I'm like, you need to have a vision. You need to remind yourself of the vision, right? That's gonna give you the inspiration to kind of to take steps forward. But I was like, you're gonna trip and fall unless you dominate today. I was like, all of us want the 300 unit apartment complex. Go get your first home. Go get a 10 unit. I don't care. Like, build momentum. Otherwise,
Yes.
if you don't have some successes that give you dopamine, you're gonna burn out and you're never gonna get there.
Exactly.
So I love that.
So the vision was always this. This was the greatest of all the dominoes that I have built for myself and envisioned for myself thus far is Walk Squad Haven. But how did I get there, to your question? I started there. There was no chance, no shot. That was 9 years ago. So this has been a decade-long journey to get where we are. That just happened in 2025. It has been nearly a decade-long journey of breaking this vision into executable steps, into
Oh my God, I love this.
into smaller and smaller and smaller goals until I reached a point that I knew was achievable. I said, okay, surely I can buy a home and not just rent, right? That's a huge 85% of people these days don't purchase a house until they're over the age of 30. If you find yourself in a situation that you're capable of doing that, buying any home, let alone a duplex, a quadplex, an apartment building, or an RV park, if you have the ability to buy a single family residential home before the age of 30, you're already more successful than 85% of the population. So why are you not more confident? You're in the top 15% already. Be confident in that vision and keep chasing it. And I try to use the data and I try to use facts and instead of arrogance and blind confidence to fuel me. And so that was the big one right there. I secured that deal. I moved my family into it after leaving the military, going back to college and living with 6 people, myself, my wife, and my 4 young children that were all under the age of 5 years old in one bedroom of my mother's house for over a year.
You guys have any twins? That's a lot of kids.
No, we have Irish twins, yes, born 11 months apart. But
awesome.
So we were there. Confidence is shaken. Confidence is broken. I left the nice house in the military to go on this journey, and here I am living back at mom's, no money, 4 young children looking to me, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to find a way to do it. So I funded that property. Then I was a guarantor on another property. So I said, okay, let's do this a different way. I may not have money, but I could get limited partners and I could put my credit on the line and I could do the renovations and I can flip a house. That'll help me get quick money. I did that and renovated the house, put $45,000 worth of my investors' renovation dollars into the home, did 80% of the work myself. Like you said, scrubbing toilets. Don't be afraid to do the work. Had my credit on the line and COVID hit. So now the housing market slows. People aren't buying. So I decide, okay, well, we're going to do a year or 2 rental while we figure out what's going on with the pandemic. And our tenants, 3 months after moving in, stopped paying the mortgage because the federal government put rental protections in place.
Right.
And I got sued for it because we attempted to evict them. We tried to do everything we could to salvage the deal. And ultimately, it was an utter failure for those investors. It was my first big deal with investors. I was extremely confident. All the dollars lined up. It was perfect. We had a fantastic deal, and it all fell to pieces. Like you said, mishaps are going to happen no matter whether you think you have it figured out or not. And so that, again, shook my confidence and put me a few steps back. And so I kind of had to go back to the drawing board, and I said, I don't want to risk other people's money. I don't know enough yet.
What? So you're saying it shook your confidence. This is where I struggle with this a lot too. Is it's funny, like I teach the medicine that I need to take myself a lot. Like I'm trying to be every failure to find gratitude in it, right? Truly, because a year later, I realized how much good it did for me. Not necessarily, did it suck? Yeah. Did it hit me financially? Yeah, that definitely wasn't good. But the lessons I learned made me so much more confident ultimately. Because like there is confidence in knowing, okay, like, hey, obviously, like you can't foresee COVID happening. Okay, so I get it. But like you saw what could happen if something goes wrong. So therefore, A, it's not as scary anymore, right? Like, okay, it happened, it sucks. But B, maybe there's certain angles you can think through in preparation for if it fails, here's the contingency or blah, 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 right? So it probably shook your confidence, but on the next deal, you were probably like, it didn't kill me.
Exactly. So we're still here. Exactly. So I learned two great things. One, everything. Okay, first of all, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think we all know that, right? But life is a series of taking risks. And inherently, that's the deal. You take a risk, it doesn't always pan out. So you have to only take risks that you're willing to accept the worst case scenario. So that was lesson number one. From that moment on, I said, okay, I'm not going to have blind faith. I have got to be far more strategic about this. I have to make sure that I understand ahead of time that I'm not taking a blind leap of faith, that I know worst case scenario, best case scenario, everything in between. And I do a really detailed risk assessment. So I assess my risk and I determine if all hell breaks loose, if worst case scenario becomes reality, would I still be willing to take that chance? And that has driven me because, I'm not crazy risk averse. I'll take some chances. But I needed to know, with so many mouths and lives that depended on me, I needed to know what is the worst thing that I can imagine happening, and then map out how to deal with it. And if I could determine a path of dealing with the worst case scenario, what am I afraid of? What am I worried about? What's holding me back if I have an answer for the worst case scenario? And so that was a huge lesson to me, understanding how to move forward. And the very next thing that I did was I bought another fixer-upper single-family residential property, upgraded the kitchen, replaced the floors, painted all the walls, all myself while living in the residence. Bought a 3-bedroom residential property in a up-and-coming neighborhood, or excuse me, it was an older neighborhood that was being revived. So it's an up-and-coming, neighborhood. Found the good deal and lived in it for 2 years while renovating it. They had a large game room. I split it in half, turned it into 2 more bedrooms. So same square footage, but I did the things that I could with what I had. I bought the place for just under $200,000. I used my VA loan, 0% down. These were in the days where interest rates, I had a 2.84% interest rate on the house. I should have held on to it. But in that lesson too, right, I learned another valuable lesson that don't let your deal's success rely on timing. Both deals could have been better had I let the deal unfold at the right time. But I rushed. I pushed it too quickly. And this happens a lot with flipping homes, is that you go into a position, you say, look, I have this construction loan. I need to get this done. I need to get that done. I want a 40% profit margin. And the only way to do that is to sell this house in 120 days or less.
So this was your deal. It was basically a live-in VA loan flip,
Yes.
which is beautiful. That's awesome. Eric Upchurch got his start building up capital that way. He did 2 of those. Let's try, like, and just for sake of time, because I this could go on. This could be like a Joe Rogan podcast episode right now. But like, how did you get from that deal to now the Walk Haven or the Walk Squad Haven?
So that deal I made $16,000 off of. Every penny I turned around and I reinvested it into the next property. So I then 2 years later bought the home before this one, which was a 6-bedroom model home. And I found the great deal because the owners had a short-term career change, cross-country move. They were desperate to sell.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I found the property. They were willing to work on price significantly. I got in touch with their realtor and worked myself without an intermediary. I worked with their realtor to do a sole sale, so they didn't even put the house on the market. So I avoided this was 2022. I avoided 2022, beginning of 22. I avoided the bidding wars that were still going on post-COVID.
Right.
So where most people are paying far
Wow.
over
How did you
market-
pull that off? That's
Well,
wild.
they needed to sell quickly. I had the sale of my home already lined up, and I knew what I was going to get out of it. So I told them, look, I can do this 10% down. I'm going to use the VA loan. So, and I actually structured it uniquely. I did a 0% down on the purchase price of the house, but instead paid the sellers directly 10%.
Oh, that's cool.
So then my mortgage was 10% under the total purchase price, which gave me an even better interest rate and allowed me to live in a nicer, bigger home in a better neighborhood when my children were starting school. You know, they were afforded the opportunity to walk to school every morning, an eighth of a mile away. And I convinced their realtor to do this because I said, look, I'm already pre-approved VA, so that was a big one. Don't go start looking at houses if you're not pre-approved, right? So I told them I'm already pre-approved for over this amount. I have these dollars in my account right now. I guarantee I have everything in order to do a 30-day close. If we don't close in 30 days, you walk away, you put it on the market, and I'll fight with everybody else to try to get this home. I said, but I am going to buy this home in 30 days. So they said, okay, we will give you 30 days because we want a seller. We don't want to worry about staging it and doing all these commissions and all this.
Right.
Okay, fine. That's a good enough deal for us. If you give us this price, they set their price. I said, okay, I'll buy it for that.
The lesson learned there, I think, I actually say, like, whenever people ask me about, like, on the commercial side as well, whether it's like basically negotiating deals, I'm like, the most valuable thing, some people will say it's the price, but what I have found when it comes to negotiations, the most valuable thing is confidence of close. The seller and the broker want to get their money
Yes,
on a timeline.
absolutely.
Confidence of close. So you convinced them
Yes.
that you're going to close.
And in that deal, I lived in that house for the last few years, built equity, improved the property, did exterior paint and replastering, and put in a bunch of a beautiful outdoor backyard patio, and then turfed out, all a dog run and all this kind of stuff, all myself. Again, minimizing costs to contractors. Hey, I am a YouTube certified everything.
What? I
So,
love that.
did everything myself. And ultimately, it was that paired with all of those previous dominoes that afforded me the opportunity. It took me $85,000 in liquid capital of my own money to fund the Walk Squad Haven. I did a $900,000, 106-acre property that I looked for those 2 years that I was in that home. Again, I already knew this was my vision at this point. I spent the last 2 years looking for the right deal. So again, we talk about timing. You might want to find that deal right now. You might have, VCs, you might have investors, you might have a great team, and you want to find that deal right now. Be patient, because I spent 2 years questioning myself, second guessing everything, even making compromises on the vision many times along the way. Maybe I can make it work with 20 acres. Maybe I can make it work with raw land and just build everything as I go and start from scratch. Maybe this, maybe that. I kept looking for over 2 years, and finally I came across this place. They had it for sale originally at $1.6 million. And I said, this is exactly what I'm looking for. 2 years prior, saved it on my Zillow, kept looking, kept looking. They dropped price over the 2 years down to 1.1. I reached out to the realtor and then, just kind of kept putting feelers out and casting the line, right? You'll never catch a fish if you never cast the bait into the water. And so I kept going, I kept going. They kept dropping the price, and I established a good rapport with their realtor. And I said, hey, look, let me know. I said, this is outside of my price range. I know what I can afford. I said, I love this property. I would like to know if it does end up selling. Could you please just, let me know as a potential offerer if you get any offers.
Right. Okay, I got you.
And so, and they wouldn't tell me, anything outside of that, but the realtor did agree to doing that. So that was just another unique way that I could kind of keep an eye on it while I was trying to prepare to get it.
It's a great way to do that. That makes a lot of sense because, again, the realtor wants options. And
exactly.
They know if they create some pressure,
yes,
you're another option.
Exactly. Yeah. And that happened a couple times over the 2 years, and I still was not in the place to be able to make it happen. I did not have enough equity in the former home. In fact, that my last deal was yet another failure. So it's been a success, a failure, a success, a failure, success, failure, but ultimately lost money on that deal. And had this deal cost another $1,000, I may not have been able to close it. But I said, we will do a 60-day close, which the buyers were, completely surprised by that. They said, there's no way. It's a 106-acre property that has 3 livable units on it, a large shop, 2 barns, tons of infrastructure. The VA loan this is an extremely unique deal for the VA loan. And so I worked with, 20 different mortgage companies to try to structure this deal. And let me tell you, I got a $900,000 mortgage at 0% down with a 3-unit on the property.
You got a 106-acre triplex with a VA loan is what you're saying.
Yes.
That is bananas. Well, it wasn't really a triplex. It wasn't connected. Like, there were like separate homes on the land, right?
We have a 2-story, 5-bedroom farmhouse built in 2003 on the property. Right next to that, we have a 30-by-60 shop, followed by a 3-car garage, followed by a 3-bedroom, single-story manufactured home, which we also know is a challenge for VA, right? Because it's not on a permanent foundation. And then next to that is a 2-bedroom, more studio-style cabin that sleeps now, based off of the way I've renovated it, 12 people. So,
bravo! Like, what?
Really unique. I mean, I think it comes down to the relationships you build, the sincerity and the intentions of your motivation. How hard are you willing to work for it? How bad do you want the deal?
I'm telling you, whoever your loan officer is, that number 20 of all the loan officers you talk to, he's probably telling this story to the grave.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most unique like, I've never heard of anything like this. Like we wrote the book on military house hacking. Like, what?
Well, and here I am now, still house hacking. So here we go. It gets better. It gets better. So
okay.
We're living in the primary residence. I'm 100% permanent and total disabled. So negotiated with the tax office.
No property
taxes. Okay. Then I helped my mother renovate and sell her house that she lived in for 8 years pre-COVID. So at a fantastic interest rate. And so was able to negotiate as kind of a consultant on this real estate deal to help her sell her house without a realtor. Got over $100,000 in her pocket, and I moved her into the second residence. So now I have a renter in the second residence, and I am now utilizing the cabin as the first of many soon to be glamping style cottages that will be used for the dual purpose property out here at the Haven. So, my vision for the Haven, I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to dive right into
Fine.
what are we
You're
really
fine.
doing here, right? All of this, all of that work, all those failures, all of that effort is culminated in this. The vision for the Walk Squad Haven can really be summarized in three core concepts: real estate development, hence why we're here; experiential recreation. You're coming here to do things for the experience, right? It's not anybody can have a place to stay, but can you have what I'm about to tell you we're going to offer? And finally, community mentorship. Those are the three core concepts. That is what we're doing here. We are taking this 106 acres, and for real estate development, we are going to put 10 or more glamping style cottages in sequential order that are all inclusive. From the food that you eat will be on site. Of course, showers in the cottages, kitchenettes in the cottages, plenty of sleeping space, your own parking space. That's the next big goal for the development, alongside of a large RV park. I want to have both short-term and long-term stays. Now, both of these feed into our experiential recreation. Why would people come out here? Simple. You're going to get to come out here and you're going to be able to put the iPads down, put the cell phones away, put the daily grind to the side and to the back of your mind, and you're going to get to experience the simple life. Now, one of the big things here is that the simple life is not a step back. And that's a big part of what I'm teaching. Is a simple life is actually what many of us are missing these days. There's a reason why anxiety and depression and suicide are so rampant. There's a reason why our children are more and more concerned with the amount of time that you let them have their iPad or the age at which you give them a cell phone. It's because we're crammed into houses in the suburbs with no where to go, no place to be without spending more and more and more money. You can't just go out these days with a family and enjoy a nature walk. You can't just go without spending money, right? Or traveling far out to a national park. You can't go out and go fishing without spending money. You can't go out to a shooting range and even teach your children about gun safety. God forbid, if you are a Second Amendment believer, such as myself, and you have children, such as myself, avoidance is not a lesson to teach your children. You can't teach them, oh, these weapons don't exist until you're 18. You can't take your child to the range effectively and really guide them and teach them in a safe environment. That's the experience that we're doing here for the recreation. You get to come out to the Haven, and you get to have a dedicated, individualized space that is private and separate from others, and you get to enjoy catch and release fishing. You get to enjoy a private shooting range with a certified instructor and a certified expert marksman to teach you and your children how to safely use and handle and store firearms. You get to go out and teach your children how to ride dirt bikes and four-wheelers and side-by-sides in a safe manner. Where do you get to do that? And rent them on site. You don't need your own, but you're welcome to bring your own.
Right.
Where else can you go where it's an all-inclusive ranch that you have horseback riding that you can do? And it's all right here on site.
I love how big the vision is, how it's just like how it's rooted in what your beliefs are, and how I don't know. I really, please, here's a challenge to you. Please keep posting about this. Every single mistake, I think I'd mentioned that to you at the conference. It's partially selfishly. I just want to keep hearing what do you have a newsletter, or just post it in the community, get more people involved, let everybody know what you're doing. It's really cool. The vision is massive. I love that. But also, we do have to wrap up here in a second, but it's something that I wanted to bring up because somebody hit us up in our Instagram DMs the other day. And he was like, hey, I just want to figure out how to get started. And I think I commented back something like, well, have you thought about house hacking, like, cause if and he's like, well, no, I'm like, I don't think my wife would be down or something like that. Like I just sharing, walls with somebody. I was like, I wanted to, I was like, how do I not be a jerk? But I kind of wanted to like give him a little bit of a pep talk. I was like, you got to sacrifice a little bit. Like I'll never forget a Bigger Pockets podcast episode I listened to years ago where a teacher making like $4,000 a month. They also had like 3 or 4 kids. They rolled up their sleeves. They bought a house, a triplex, spent nights and weekends with a bottle of wine, painting, putting
Mm.
caulk, doing everything on their own. A year later, it was covering their mortgage. Refinanced and did the next one. Refinanced, did the next one. Took them 3 or 4 years.
But
Next thing you know, he replaced his income and then he started doing it full time. They put like the amount of like just swallow your ego and just to put in the work that I think sometimes people need to hear. Like there's no like if you don't
absolutely.
if you don't have other opportunities, and also a lot of times opportunities won't hit you unless you're that type of person anyway. So if you want opportunities to knock on your door, you're gonna have to start rolling up your sleeves.
And that point
You
you
know?
make, is exactly the final aspect and the final point of what is the Haven all about. Community mentorship, right?
Yeah.
You're 100% right. An opportunity won't come a knocking if you have a no trespassing sign at your door, you know?
Right.
If you're too afraid, if you're not willing. One of the things that happened in my experience, and as I stated, right, it's been a stepping stone. I've done, I don't know, 6, 7 deals now. This, I think, my 6th or 7th deal. All across them, there were successes, there were failures, and it was a risk. But this is what I told my wife, and this is a huge aspect of motivation that I've had to, as you said, kind of feed yourself, feed others, and teach others the medicine that you often need for yourself. So for me, I had to constantly remind myself, and even now, but during those years where I was doing those deals and it was up and down and it was a roller coaster ride, I told myself, look, I promised my wife when we got married, and again the same promise when I left the military. I said, trust me, put 100% of your trust in me, and I promise you that we won't fail. So I made her that promise, and I sat there. I sat there and I said, okay, this is how I'm going to do everything. I'm not going to look at the short-term wins. I'm not going to look for the instant gratification, which again, community mentorship, that's a huge problem we have these days, is everyone wants it now. They don't want the 12-step process. They don't want the, well, pay for a cohort and then do this and then do that and then do that. And then maybe in 2 years you might have your first apartment complex. They want it now. They want the money now. Well, here's how it really works, ladies and gentlemen. If you want it, you have to realize that every domino you have to realize it's not going to happen in your own timing, and it's certainly almost never going to happen quickly. You have to hunker down and realize, and this is something that I have to remind myself of all the time. I'm going to pursue the goal that might make me feel like I've taken a step or 2 or 3 backwards this year or next year or for the next 3 years. But so long as I don't give up and so long as I don't fail, because the only way you truly fail is if you give up. So long as you don't give up, when that sacrifice is over, those steps back are temporary. So, when you're living in a house and you're renovating it yourself, you move into a house, everyone wants a turnkey house to live in. Nobody wants issues. If we could all have a 100% perfect new construction home for our family to live in with an extra bedroom for family, we'd all buy that. But if you really want to make money, that's not the right deal. The right deal is the dilapidated house that needs new fixtures and new paint and maybe a wall knocked down and maybe a few renovations here and there on a large scale. That sacrifice where you're saying, okay, I still have my W-2 job. I'm still working all day. And last year I would work 8 hours. I'd come home. I'd eat dinner with my family. We'd watch some television and we'd go to bed. What a great, nice, simple life. And now here I am living in a house where I work 8 hours and then I work another 4 to 6 hours and I go to sleep late every night. I don't have any time off. I'm not going out with friends. And it just seems like an endeavor that's never going to end. Remember, you have a plan. Have confidence in your plan. And in 6 months or a year or 3 years, it's going to pay off. And that's how we've gotten here. And that's what I want to teach the community is that throw away the notion that instant gratification is somehow benefiting you. It's not. It feels good. It's the dopamine hit like you talked about earlier, but it does you no good. It's the harder roads, it's the longer roads that are filled with sacrifice and risk that you really learn the valuable lessons. And I think that's what we've been talking about for the past hour is that it doesn't matter if your deal goes the way you thought it would or not. You're going to learn something valuable from just getting up and getting out and doing it. So if you want to buy an apartment complex, but you're not there yet, find something that is an actionable goal and accomplish that and build that confidence. Maybe you want an apartment complex this year, but would you rather never have it because you never start, because you never think you can achieve it? Or would you rather have one in 5 years? Because if you start now and in 5 years, there's nothing that will prevent everyone from having it, if that's the vision you have.
I- It's said differently. I actually thought about this. I was like walking outside yesterday or the day before. I was like, because I mentally have to coach myself
Yes.
through
Every day.
stuff every day. And I was like, I am optimizing for my future self. Because whatever's hard now, if I'm living the same thing 20 years from now, it's going to be 10 times harder.
Mm.
I want my future self to not hate myself today. So like
Absolutely.
I want my future self to thank me for putting in the work now. And I mean, like, if you could see yourself, in 2018 or whenever you started your vision, you already have this land now. Like, that's a positive mental feedback loop there. Like
Absolutely.
this used to be your dream. So like the difficulties now, you're thankful for it because this used to be your dream.
Absolutely. And that's
And
what
even
those
though it's still
dominoes
not
teach you.
done. Yeah. Cheyenne, I'm sorry. We're going to have to wrap it up, but I could go on for another hour at least, I can tell. But thank you so much. I'm sure, you know what? We're going to have you on for another one, like a year or two from now.
Absolutely.
When
Love it.
the glamping's developed, the community mentorship is further developed, all this kind of stuff, the momentum is further along. Meanwhile, keep sharing your story with the military community. I really appreciate your inspiration today. Thank you for contributing to our mission of impacting 3 million military families. You're a big domino in our community now, so no pressure. But
Hey, I love the pressure. That's what pushes you to succeed, right? But I'll tell you,
yes, sir.
final thing, I really appreciate everything you guys have given me, all the fantastic discussion. I love being able to brainstorm and work with people. I'm at a point where I want this. I don't want this vision to take another 5 years, and this discussion today is a big part of that. I want to find new methods. I've gotten to a point where I need more experienced and more knowledgeable real estate teams to educate me on avenues by which we can accomplish this vision. So that is a big part of today too. My business vision is faith, freedom, and function. Well, I need people to help guide me on how to continue on the development front because of all the deals I mentioned, did I ever say I've done a new construction? Now, I've built homes with my hands, but did I do the permits? Did I do the blueprints? No, I don't know any of that.
Okay, how do people find you? Okay, right now, somebody's listening. We're wrapping up. How do they reach out to you? Phone number, email,
Absolutely.
website? What do you got?
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, easiest way to get a hold of me immediately right after this call is my business cell phone number. That's 903-698-3040. Alternatively, you always have email. Maybe you don't know me, you're a little intimidated by having a conversation. Email me. Email me is fantastic. You can go c.wachtendorf@walksquadhaven.com. I would spell it
We'll
phonetically.
put that in the
but that'll
show
be
notes.
long. Absolutely. Perfect. And of course, right now, we're so early in developing that we have a Facebook page where I'm sharing some of the progress and some photos and such. And you can find us on Facebook at Walk Squad Haven. That is Whiskey Alpha Charlie Hotel, Sierra, Quebec, Uniform Alpha Delta. Walk Squad is one word, Haven.
Awesome. I'm going to look that up on Facebook right now.
We are
Well-
getting there, but we want to find other people who share in this vision. I want to create a replicable framework for doing this over and over and over. I know how to find the deals. I know how to work the deals. I know how to build the land and make it into a place that people want to come. But how do I build the infrastructure? That's where I need somebody else's help. So I'm all for
You heard it, folks.
I'm all for working with others and teaming and finding ways to develop this property and generate new revenue streams and recreate this process time and time again, because I want to impact millions of people and get them out of this day-to-day grind. I think a simple life, being in nature, getting your feet out, going for a swim, these things are undervalued, and I want to change people's minds here in 2025 and beyond.
Cheyenne, thank you again so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Can't wait till the next time. Yeah. Share this with our community along your journey. I'll be there cheering you on. Everybody, if this was impactful to you, please contribute to our mission. You don't have to leave us a review if you don't want to, if that takes too much time. Just share this. Hit the share button, grab the link, text it to somebody, pass it along to maybe more than one person, right? To kind of like grow the spider web, have the ripple effect go beyond yourself. Without further ado, I'm signing off. Thank you again, Cheyenne. Thank you, ADPI community. See you later. Bye.
Have a good one.